I am Kaylin Womack. I'm class of 20 Sweet 16, and I'm the K-8. I'm working at a K-8 charter school in North Philadelphia, and I am a K-8 special education coordinator. My current role as a special education coordinator, first, it has me managing a team of 15. I have six special education teachers who are also IEP case managers, and the rest of the team members are support staff, typically paraeducators or one-to-ones that work with students that have special needs. And that looks like right now I manage a group of students who it's a little over 100 who have IEPs, who have different services that they are provided, whether it be learning support, speech support, occupational therapy support, counseling services, or behavior services. We don't have any students that have physical therapy services, but obviously if they needed that, we would provide that as well. And the students are either in an emotional support program, an autistic support program, a learning support program, or in a emotional support program. So we have a variety of different things that we do. We try to be as inclusive as possible. So we have students who actually attend gen ed classes and also attend specials. And we want them to just feel as if they are as normal as possible. So we want to not highlight their differences, but just help them to feel like they're included and help them to make the same milestones as other students, just with more support. So my entry path actually was not typical for this position. An opportunity was provided when a staff member abruptly left. They unexpectedly left the position, and I was offered the opportunity to take their place. And at first I was hesitant because I really didn't know all that I was getting myself into. I knew a little bit, but I knew it was going to be a really high learning curve. So I did accept the position, and after I asked a lot of questions. But typically, a person who becomes a special education coordinator or a special education director would take the path of earning a special education leadership certification. So you might go back to school for that, or you might take the exam, or you might do both of those things. Typically, that is how you would get into this type of role. I will tell you that my experience as a student earning my master's degree online at St. Joseph's in special education was really rewarding. And one of the three of the things, I'll tell you three things that it really taught me were to make sure that I was more organized than I've ever been. And that included with timeliness and just calendars, keeping your calendar really tight. Also with clear communication. If you ever think that you're a great communicator, you can always be an even better one. I definitely learned that. And then also to work smarter and not harder. So I'll give you some examples of that. As far as organization, uh, the work that I do now, there are a lot of compliance dates that are important to meet and they're legal deadlines. So if we don't meet those deadlines, then we can be penalized as a school. So I will say the way that I link that to my experience at St. Joe's is when you're in an online program, typically you're given, I think, more coursework than you would be if you were in an in-person program. And because of that, you have multiple classes, you have multiple things that are due each week. So you have to make sure that you are planning your calendar accordingly, not only for when those things are due, but when you're going to actually have the time to do them. Like many people, I was working full-time and earning my master's part-time. So I definitely had to make sure that I was on top of those deadlines in terms of, okay, if I know something is due on Sunday at 12 a.m., then I need to make sure that I make time somewhere within the week to work out or to give the time that's allotted for that particular project. And you also have to be mindful of how long it's going to take you to do that project, just in terms of like the energy that you're going to need, and then also just the like diligence that you need in reading the course material and things like that. As far as clear communication, it was really important for me to learn not to just communicate with my professors, but obviously when you're in an online program, you want to bring the students together. So you spend a lot of time on the message boards talking about different things that you've read together and making sure that your points are being conveyed correctly so that your classmates either can understand what you're saying or also agree with or even disagree with what you're saying, but making sure that you're also quoting where you're getting your information from the course material that you're required to read, and even outside material that you bring in that kind of complements the course material. And then as far as working smarter, again, because I actually was working a full-time job and also a part-time job and doing a part-time online master's degree program. So as you can imagine, my days were extremely long. So I had to work smart. If there were times where I could use material from one course in another course's paper, I absolutely tried to do that just to kind of bridge those ideas and gaps because I didn't necessarily have the time to go back and read some new material in order to meet the assignment requirements. I would say, especially if you're on an online program, you really want to try to be as a part of the community as possible. So if there are things that are happening, whether they're like virtual events that are happening, you should be open to being a part of those things, making sure that you know when those things are happening, become a part of like the listservs or the newsletters, follow those things. If you're in person, obviously, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, introduce yourself to people, and even tell people that you're trying to create a network of mentors. You're trying to create a network of people in the field so that you can hone your skills, but also bring something to the table so that people can brainstorm with you and kind of collaborate. I will tell you, both in my undergrad and in my graduate classes, I tended to be the single Black female in the room. Sometimes that can feel alone. Not to say that other students and even professors didn't try to connect with me, but at times when you don't see people that look like you, it can kind of make you feel out of place a little bit. I'm sure people can relate to that. But that is a barrier that you kind of have to get over. You have to recognize, especially if the industry that you're in is dominated by a certain demographic. It is something that you kind of have to work through. I would say in education as a whole, there are more women that are in the field than men. So another, not necessarily a barrier for me, but one of the things that I've noticed that I think is a barrier for the students that I serve is that there aren't a lot of men, a lot of Black men or men of color either in the education field. So I do sometimes think that that's a barrier because everyone has a voice and everyone has something that they can contribute to the table. So if you have more diversity in a classroom, if you have more diversity, whether it's a collegiate classroom or it's a public school or a charter school, it definitely helps to make a richer experience, I think, for the people who are being serviced. I would say the first thing I think of when I think of inclusion, which is maybe not the first thing other people think of, is the students that I serve. So I work with children who have IEPs. They're getting special education services, and I work in a school that is very big on inclusion. So in some situations, I think when some people are maybe in my age group and a little older, and they think of special education when they were in school, it may have looked like, oh, the students with special education services were not even in the same classroom or even on the same floor or even in the same wing, maybe not even in the same building as students who are receiving general education. And now we're at a place where we are trying to have the least restrictive environment and we want to provide FAPE for students. So if it's a free and appropriate public education for them, we want to give as many opportunities as possible for inclusion in terms of in your math classes, your ELA classes, your science classes, your social studies classes, and even your specials, which would be, gym, art, technology, those kinds of classes and things like that. So the first thing I think of when it comes to inclusion is that we want to, I think as a society, still continue to bridge the gap between general education and special education in the classroom together, having more special educators visit the general education classroom and paraeducators so that they can support students that have special needs in classes, but also helping children to understand, and so maybe this is where the diversity comes in as well, helping children who don't necessarily have special needs understand how they can be a part of welcoming students who may have some learning differences into the learning environment, how they can collaborate with them, how they can partner with them and do different projects or encourage those students, and even socially allow those students to feel very welcome, even if they're not able to have the same academic conversations, at least socially are we able to engage with each other. Definitely think so. I am not currently in a position where I get to hire a lot of the people on my team, but I will say that when I talk about what is needed for the students that I work with and what is needed in order for the team to be a well-rounded team, I do ask for if there's a possibility for more male staff members to be a part of our team. I do ask for more people of color because we are in an urban setting. We work with children who are living in North Philadelphia, and so unfortunately, there's some limited resources and there's some limited experiences some of the students who attend this school or schools in this area have. And with that being said, I think it's important for people to know how to work with those students, to understand some cultural norms, and also even to speak to some cultural norms that may not necessarily be in the best interest of children, but to do it with a level of sensitivity. So another way that I try to approach diversity in the workplace is bringing in trainers for professional development who do have experience either living in urban settings, working in urban settings, or educating children in those settings. I would recommend this book for any career path if you are a person who is looking to move to a higher level in your particular field, but you may not feel like I don't have all the resources or the knowledge in order to do this successfully. The book name of the book is called "Do It Afraid: Embracing Courage in the Face of Fear," and it's by Dr. Joyce Myers. And I actually read this book this summer. And I will tell you, this is my second year in this particular position as a special education coordinator. And I thought to myself, wow, if I had read this book when I started this position, I think I would have approached many things a little differently, because there were times where I'd be asked to do something that was a new initiative, or I'd be asked to implement something new, and I would have a lot of fear around it because it was something that had never been done before. And it was something I didn't necessarily have like the expertise on how to do it, but I was still able to do it. And I just had to have the belief in myself that, hey, one, it's okay to fail, it's okay to make mistakes, and two, collaborate with other people, collaborate with other colleagues, even if they're not necessarily in special education, people who can help you to have a well-rounded view on how you can implement whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I would recommend that book to anyone who is just trying to move through their career and is doing something new, but they don't necessarily feel like I know how to do all of the things that are going to be required for this particular position.